Welcome to the maiden edition of the Youth Leadership Debate organized by Leap Africa. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides support and strategically harnesses voices of young people for national development. The program is organized in view of Nigeria's 2023 general elections, where young people are expected to advocate for good leadership from the point of knowledge and collectively shape the vision of Nigeria through dialogue. The Youth Leadership Debate is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, managed by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. Its purpose is to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The competition saw students of universities from the length and breadth of Nigeria debating on various topics that deal with issues in national development, entrepreneurship, women's health, security, and personal safety. It goes through various elimination stages from rounds 1 to 14, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the grand finale. Teams have been randomly paired to contest against each other and have been assigned topics which they must prepare for with only 24 hours to the debate. Guess what? It even gets more interesting because the teams will have only 10 minutes to know if they will be debating a proposition to the topic or make their points in opposition to the topic. On this episode of the program, we will show you the highlights of the competitive encounters in the first elimination rounds as the students gave their impassioned arguments in the various topics. But before then, let's get you acquainted with rules of the competition. Bernard, the moderator on day 1, will guide us through the rules.
Ground rules for the debate before I introduce our debaters. The first proposition speaker will have 5 minutes to introduce their motion, define key terms, set burdens, establish mechanisms or even models if needed, and then offer substantive argument. While the first opposing side will also have equally 5 minutes to deal with the proposed framework by the opposing side and also clash with the opposing argument. The second proposing side will have 3 minutes to clash and offer substantive new argument to defend the first speaker's point. And then the second proposing side will then have again 3 minutes to also clash and offer substantive argument to defend the first speaker's point as well. And both teams will have 1 minute aside to crystallize their round and then have their closing statement.
And of course, let's meet the judges whose assessments will determine which team of debaters will be making it through to the next round and those that will not be able to continue the journey. First feature is the encounter between the debaters from Ekiti State University, EXU, and Kaduna State University, KASU. The topic of debate is vesicovaginal fistula, VVF, and other damages associated with teenage marriage. The Nigerian Constitution fails to provide clarity on age of consent and age of marriage. The team from EXU had Oluwatomisin Ajayi and Emmanuel Salako debating as the proposing side, while the team from KASU comprising John Victor and Oyibo David debating as the opposing side. A vesicovaginal fistula is an abnormal opening that forms between the bladder and the wall of the vagina. It is a preventable ailment that has been an age-long menace in developing countries. Many Nigerian women live with vesicovaginal fistula. Research shows that the annual incidence is estimated at 2.11 per 1,000 births. Some common causes include cesarean section, uterine rupture, and Gishiri cut. The identified predisposing factors were early marriage and pregnancy, which were rampant in northern Nigeria. Also, among the significant contributory factors is high rate of unskilled birth attendants. Experts say the only way to repair this opening is through surgery and is most times successful. Now, it's time to hear from our debating contestants who have joined in virtually from their bases in Ekiti and Kaduna states. In her submission, Oluwatomisin Ajayi, the lead speaker from Ekiti State University, concludes that the Nigerian constitution has not protected the rights of the female child and goes on to point out a series of loopholes in the constitution that leaves the young girls vulnerable to VVF.
Why do we have 78% girls in the northern part of Nigeria who are child brides or who were married as child brides? Why do we have incessant cases of child abuse and vesico-vaginal fistula in the northern part of Nigeria and even in Nigeria at large? Why is Nigeria still leading in the scene of child marriage in the world? Nigerian Republic, who leads in the scene of child marriage with 4.1 million child brides, is still lower in the count of child brides, and Nigeria leads with 22 million child brides, according to UNICEF. A country that is meant to protect and guide the girl child endangers her as it fails to give clarity on the basis of age of consent and age of marriage. If we say that the constitution has not failed, why do we still have 11 states out of 36 states of the Federation that have not signed this law? Why has the Nigerian constitution not mandated it? Why has law enforcement agencies not decided to checkmate the rate of child marriage in Nigeria?
John Victor, the lead speaker for Kaduna State University, in his submission opposes the mission with the argument that the Nigerian constitution provides clarity on adulthood and a minor.
First of all, I want to say that in the principle of application of law in Nigeria, there is a term we call hierarchy. And that hierarchy shows that the Nigerian constitution comes first, followed by the legislations, which include this Child Rights Act we're talking about today, the judicial precedents, customary law, Islamic law, and received English law. Now, the Section 31 of the Child Rights Act basically criminalized sex with a child under 18 years. And with a child. And this was further clarified by Section 277 of the Child Rights Act, which explains that a child is anyone less than 18 years. Now, after this law was passed, 11 states in the country are yet to adopt this law. Now, what is the problem? According to Section 100 of the Constitution, it is clearly stated that each state's House of Assembly have the right to apply the law as they see fit. So the Constitution is clear on this. Yes, the Constitution, by virtue of the Child Rights Act, has established that the age of consent is 18 years. But then it also gave right to states to establish the law according to their own religious or ethnic background.
And then it was time for supporting casts to air their views. Both lead speakers had 5 minutes each to establish their arguments. Their teammates, on the other hand, had just 3 minutes to drive home the point. Emmanuel Salako took to the podium to speak in proposition of the topic and defend his school, Ekiti State University, and he wasted no time to hit the ground running. To counter his opponent's view, David Oyibo, the second speaker from Kaduna State University, cites a section of the Constitution, an international regulation that Nigeria has adopted with the aim of protecting child's rights. The team from Kaduna argued in opposition to the topic.
The Child Rights Act clearly states and clearly emphasizes that the age of consent is 18 years. A child is deemed one that below the age of 18. And also, if you look at the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the CRC, which was adopted and ratified by Nigeria on the 16th of April 1991, you will see an important clause in the CRC in Article 24, Section 3, which states that state parties shall take all effective and appropriate measures with a view of abolishing traditional practices prejudicial to the health of children. And also in Article 1 of the CRC, it states that for the purposes of the present convention of a child, for the purpose of the present convention, a child means every human being below the age of 18 years. This is clearly stated in the CRC, and this is a document that Nigeria has adopted. How can you tell me then that the Constitution is not clear on empowering laws that push the age of consent to be 18 years?
Having made their impassioned arguments in proposition and in opposition to the topic, and with only 10 minutes to prepare for their arguments on either side of the divide, it was time for the judges to give their verdict. Andy Madaki was first to give his comments.
Their first and second round. So Ekiti State University stresses that the Constitution has failed, and why 11 states haven't signed this into law. They also focused a lot on rights to education and the failure of clarity of the law and the Constitution. The second person, the first debater from Kaduna State, you showed very good understanding of the Nigerian Constitution, but it would have been good to also share more light on the Sharia law in Nigeria, because your argument was based on the fact that the Constitution accommodates everybody and makes room for different religions where the states have a right to decide what works for them.
And then Shona Olaliri.
I think Andy has done a very extensive job in terms of summarizing most of the things that I would have loved to touch on. The final thing I would just like to add is like the use of storytelling. So it would have been great to, hear like more news stories about what the media has reported concerning the issue, just so that the issue, the topic of the debate is brought to life. I think that element of storytelling is always important, and that's something that the speakers can take note of next time, just so that the issue is more real to the audience listening.
So I established Leap Africa in 2002, motivated by two convictions. One, that Africa desperately needed a new generation of principled, dynamic, innovative leaders who will transform the continent. And that our young people were leaders of today and tomorrow.
We are poised to raise millions of Africans. We are poised to have a research institute within our Leap Leadership Institute, and so much more that we are planning to do through our Premier Research Center.
There are many bright spots, and where you see those bright spots in Africa, they're really linked to effective, committed, and dynamic leadership from the top. They're linked to a strong private sector and a civil society that works. And that's the vision we have.
We're not just scaling out, we are scaling deep. We want to understand what more, how best, what is unique, what will make success for a young person in the next 5 years.
I really believe we've served as catalysts. In fact, we went out with that vision to serve as a catalyst in the ecosystem, not only by inspiring our young people to become change agents themselves and become social innovators, to start their own organizations across the continent, but we really wanted to partner with others to change the ecosystem, to change the nonprofit and civil society landscape, and I think we've done that.
We have unlearned some things, we have failed forward, and this has strengthened our systems, our structures, our people, our processes in such a way that we can only expand and scale. We can scale upwards, we can scale that's vertically, horizontally, as well as going deep with what we're doing even internally.
And we are creating the next generation of leaders in the public, private, non-profit sectors who can drive the transformation we desperately need on the African continent.
Okay, the stage is set for another set of contestants, and this time Onyewo Richard and Akindeju Michael from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, were up against Oduwaye Akolade and Mojindu Francis from Babcock University. The topic before this group is the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, which has been a dream for the average Nigerian. Should it be shut down? The team from FUTA, speaking in opposition of the topic and led by Onyewo Richard, made their submission.
40% of Nigerians, which is 83 million people, live below the poverty line. So if there is not a system like this that could rescue us in order to cut our bills, I don't believe life will be much more easier for us. So the government has actually made it much more convenient for we citizens of Nigeria to have accessible, affordable, equitable health system. So with that being said, I believe the NHIS has really impacted a lot of sectors, since a lot of research has revealed that most of the people in different geopolitical zones actively support the initiatives and actively support the scheme of NHIS.
As far as the team from Babcock is concerned, there's hardly any reason to sustain the NHIS, and Uduwaye Akolade wasted no time to make her points.
In explaining why the NHIS has remained a dream since the policy was drafted in 1997 till today, Thursday, 11 August 2022, I will highlight some of the shortcomings of the scheme. First is the inadequate legal framework and implementation of the scheme. Let me explain to you some legal benefits provided by the scheme. Number one is hospital care, but it's limited to 15 days a year, and the patient is only allowed to stay in the general ward. Number two is pharmaceutical care, but it's limited to only the drugs on the NHIS list, of which you still have to pay 10% of. Number three is free diagnostic tests, only for the tests on the list. Number four is maternal care for 4 live births, which is great, except you intend to have a very large family. And number five is preventive dental care, not corrective dental care. How very universal this is. Some other legal issues I have with the Establishing Act of the National Health Insurance Scheme is the failure for it to properly define the coverage population, because according to a survey carried out, only 4% of the population is covered currently by the NHIS.
Now, Akindeju Michael, who is the second speaker for FUTA, argued that a major impediment to access healthcare is the cost of medical treatment. According to him, government's regulation of healthcare costs through the NHIS makes it affordable and readily available to the average Nigerian.
For people with high deductible health plans and those living in countries where they need to pay for healthcare out of their pockets, the issue of money is a very big one. Now, the people that may want to get treatment and maybe access the hospitals or clinic by any means may not have the means to pay for these healthcare services. Now, the NHIS was created to eliminate this barrier. The second point is lower healthcare costs. The governments are the one controlling these prices, and since they control the prices, they can regulate how the things should be sold, how the services should be rendered.
For Mojindu Francis, the second speaker from Babcock University, a functional health insurance scheme cannot be maintained in a system replete with faulty and non-functional primary health infrastructure. As far as he is concerned, the NHIS cannot work if the health centers are not even equipped.
The primary healthcare centers, which can be described as the first contact between individuals and national healthcare system, most of them are in abysmal states in our country. Most of them are not functional. In 2019, in an interview with Premium Times NG, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health in Niger State said that out of the 1,400 primary healthcare centers in the state, about less than 20% of them are functional. So how do you even want to convince people to believe in an insurance scheme whereby public infrastructure, which should take care of the health of people, are not functional? In some communities, people have to trek up to 3 kilometers to access basic healthcare or basic malaria needs. Some years ago, I think in 2019 or 2020, a doctor, Dr. Stephen Ijeowe of Federal Medical Center, died in front of FMC Yenegoa. Why? Because he had a heart attack and he could not get a defibrillator because the only defibrillator was in the state house of the Bayelsa state government. So how then do you want people to believe in the health insurance?
The judge's comments.
And so I'll start with Foot Akure. Richard, you started with a good use of storytelling, which I noticed, and so you brought in a bit of storytelling, so you listened to that feedback, but there was a bit of disorganization with your delivery. So while you did storytelling, you jumped to some facts and figures, and so the debate didn't really connect. So you had valid points, but connecting it to tell a good story, to have a good flow, the organization was a bit all over the place.
Ensuring that you work on your ability to be concise. And what that means is at the end of your debate, right, when you know that the timer is on 1 minute, it's not really the best time to be, taking our minds through another journey. At that point in time, what you want to do is to end in a powerful way and remind us of what you said in the last 4 minutes. So it's to work on your conciseness and be like, okay, these are the things like I wanted to emphasize, right?
One of the objectives of the youth leadership debate is to equip young people for active participation in the political affairs of the nation through their civic duties and prepare them to advocate for good leadership from the point of knowledge. There is therefore no better platform to discuss electoral reforms. So, contestants from Bayero University, Kano and the University of Benin went head-to-head on the topic Our Way Out, Involvement in Party Administration, Not Electoral Reform. Now, here's Rimi Dado Umar Yusuf from Bayero University speaking on the proposing side.
Since the return of democracy in Nigeria in 1999, there has been at least several reforms to the Electoral Act and Conduct. Yet, the concept of free and fair election in Nigeria has failed to manifest. Crooked politicians continue to find their way to political offices through election malpractice. These processes have been the reason Nigeria produces undemocratic leaders to whom the country is nothing but an avenue to loot public funds. These undemocratic people tend to occupy and dominate the spaces in the election arena right from the base, which is the political parties, and as a result of their dominance, the democratic people become apathetic to political activities. Until good people like you and I start to get involved in political parties and its administration, the dream of a free and fair election in Nigeria will be far-fetched.
While the first speaker from Bayero argued in favor of active participation in politics as against electoral reforms, the lead speaker from the University of Benin, Victory Ochua, took to the podium to immediately give a counter-argument.
First off, my opponent said electoral reforms are not needed to strengthen our electoral systems in Nigeria, that they are not the way out. I want to argue that, have you ever seen a country without policies? Have you ever seen a country without law? Have you ever seen a country without rules that guide how people do things? If there were no road safety and road safety rules, many people will be driving sporadically and killing themselves almost every day on our road. So policies are very important. And that is why I'll be stating some factors which help to buttress on my point that electoral reforms are important for strengthening our political system in Nigeria, and they are the way out. Imagine an INEC that will be bought with money. Imagine an INEC that is waiting for funds to be able to carry out elections. But electoral reforms like the amended Electoral Act puts a stop to all of this. It makes sure that the funds for elections are already given to the INEC almost a year before the elections are conducted, so that there is no issues with money.
And now the judge's comments.
Quickly, because of time, Yusuf from Bayero University, good introduction, but at some point I expected a bit more vim. Your opening argument sounded more like a speech as opposed to a debate. And so it lacked a bit of persuasion, but you started with a good introduction. I just wish it was more persuasive as opposed to a speech being read out. First speaker from Benin, Victory, you are persuasive, strong arguments, a little too fast. I know it's a debate, but sometimes it's good to carry us along with the conversation. And then I noticed you had some good rebuttals, which was good.
So for Bayero University, I think they had some really good points. However, like Andy said, it really lacked the enthusiasm. At some point, it felt like they were reading something from the news. But overall, I liked some of the statistics the second speaker tried to present. about the US elections in the beginning. So that was really fantastic. I think that, yes, like Andy said, they could just have given feedback, and I think they could have used a bit more case studies, more statistics. That's for both teams. And then for University of Benin, I liked the energy, I liked the rebuttals, they had that on lock. And yes, just like I said, I wish they had used a bit more statistics and more examples, more case studies. Yeah, but overall, good attempts by both teams. Thank you.
Other key contests from the day one of the youth leadership debate include University of Benin contesting against Bayero University Kano, Tai Solarin University of Education against the University of Nigeria Nsukka, and interestingly, two separate teams from the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria squared up against each other. On the next episode of the program, we will bring you more highlights and the final verdicts from the judges. Who will make it to the next round and whose journey has come to an end? Two teams will move closer to getting the 1.5 million naira top prize with some other juicy benefits. But who are the two teams? More interestingly, they will get the opportunity to do it on one of the biggest stages of public discourse in Nigeria, the platform. The second placed team will not leave empty-handed. They will be given 1 million naira with other benefits, and the third place team also gets 600,000 naira with other benefits included. The Youth Leadership Debate is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund (NYFF), implemented by Leap Africa and funded by the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. If you'd like to know more about their operations, kindly visit their website on www.leapafrica.org.